Ellen, the badass shark girlfriend with a thick tail and a giant sword. Yeah. Or Zhu Yuan, mommy dommy cop lady who kind of has a fatty. Anyway, these are the two big boy questions that a lot of you are going to be asking yourself. Should I reroll for Ellen or save for Zhu Yuan? And in today's video, I'm pretty much going to be answering those questions for you, at least from a fighting game perspective, as well as somebody who understands Hoyo games fairly well. Just for a quick tidbit, a little bit of background so you understand where I'm coming from in my perspective. I am a fighting game player first, and then I became a gacha game player through Hoyoverse. My insight on things is very damn strong, and I'm able to predict or kind of call out a lot of what will be meta or what will be broken and things like that. I have yet to be proven wrong on a number of things, and some things I have been just outright wrong on, but not proven wrong. I guess that makes a little bit, that probably doesn't make sense. Anyway, let me just answer your question. Before we dig super deep into what these characters do and which one is probably going to be better for you, I want to give you a brief understanding of where I'm coming from and why I think the game is going to be moving in this particular direction. Without going too deep into the conversation, because it's a whole different video, I feel like the game is leaning towards Honkai Impact 3rd, where a lot more vertical investment and horizontal investment is going to depend on how you play or what you're looking for in the game. So compared to Genshin Impact or even Star Rail, where a lot of players would just want to collect characters and waifus and things like that, you actually get punished for doing that in games like Honkai Impact 3rd. And I feel like the same thing is going to happen in Zenless Zone Zero. The reason I'm saying this is because from my understanding, both CBT2, CBT3, and whatever the hell we're doing right now before launch, the game's resources in leveling up characters is pretty expensive, and being able to collect waifus is awesome and all that. But if you can't actually build the characters to use them, gear them out, and give them whatever it is they want, they will underperform significantly, and you don't want that, especially when you're trying to put them on a team and they're the weakest link. Now, where you will excel is picking a strong character, particularly your DPS character. If you have one of the strongest DPS characters available to you, and then you fill them with subpar or even good supports, then you're a lot less dependent on building a multitude of characters, and you can kind of fish around with what you're looking for. That is a primary reason that we're looking at both Ellen and Zhu Yuan. Now, with this in mind, I am considering their W engines, given the fact that if you play the game throughout either of their banners or you skip Ellen entirely, you have a guarantee on the W engine and the character, or at least a guaranteed pity. But it's not necessarily a guarantee, because we all know Hoyo likes their 50-50s, which are just dumb. Being said, let's start off with Ellen. Ellen is badass shark lady, all right? Shark girlfriend, whatever it is that you want to call Ellen. Ellen Mama Joe, Ellen Joe, right? I actually like her name. It's like countryside. Anyway, point. There's no point to that. Ellen is crazy fast. She has a fast attack animation. She's very strong, and she's very quick at what she does. Ellen excels at like this kind of drift or dashing mechanic, which is basically a forced input. And so you can do this by like double dashing, right? So you smash space bar or X. I play on controller, so you smash X twice and she'll immediately dash. From a casual perspective, this is cool because it just looks cool, and it's another part of her kit. From a fighting game perspective, this allows you to create combos that don't exist in the game. What I mean by that, because of the way that her kit works, is all behind this drift, right? So when she uses this drift, you can then do an attack, and that'll give you a stack. You can then do hold attacks, and then that will give you 3 stacks. Now, if you're playing Ellen in a particular way, 9 times out of 10, what you'll see people do is they will use the reactive assist or the quick assist. It's a little button thing at the bottom right corner, and it'll flash, and then you can trigger into a character. She does that. She has this thing called fast charge or a quick charge, and it's basically going to be able to allow you to go into that drift mode, and then instead of having to hold for like 2 or 3 seconds to get the full charge and 3 stacks, you just do it. It's so fast that she immediately gets the stacks off of 1 hit. That's really good. Now, there's a way that fighting game players will be able to do the same thing without using a quick assist. This will result in them being on the field longer with Ellen, dishing out more damage, and being able to control the DPS. How you would do that is essentially you would have to plink the dash into regular combos, right? You're basically building a combo. So something like, and obviously I can't show you guys this footage because it doesn't exist for y'all to see yet, but what you would do is you would essentially do basic attack 1, 2, then you would plink in the dash, you would do regular attack, it would come out pretty fast, and then you would plink it again, right? You would just keep it going. You would swap out, like there's tons of different things that you can do. Building the combo is all up to you. But the whole point of this character is based around drift. And with that drift in mind, you get the scissor stacks is what they're called, all those stacks. And then you're gonna get the enhanced basic attacks. Everything has ice damage attached to it. It's really wonderful when she has these things. And I think it's called like flash freeze or something like that, is where she has the ice and it consumes a flash freeze charge or a scissor stack from her. And at least during CBT, these had some crazy differences in multipliers. If I'm not mistaken, a regular attack had the multiplier of like 100% or something like that. But the regular or the flash freeze version had almost 200% on the multiplier for the damage. And that was just at level 1. The higher you go, the more damage you're going to be doing, obviously. Now, going back to the drift, not only does this drift count as basically a counter dodge state, but you also can trigger that same quick charge effect that I talked about earlier by just regularly dodging. So instead of waiting to do a quick assist or reactive assist, you just dodge and then do a dodge attack, and it's going to give you quick charge immediately. Or you just dodge and then you immediately go into the drift, and then you'll be able to get the quick attack or the quick charge effect, right? So there's different things that come down to how you play Ellen that are going to allow you to basically stack up these charges as fast as possible, where you're not dependent on the rest of your team, but you can depend on just Ellen and your own skills to play the character. A strong Ellen player is going to be able to build up 6 stacks in what I would assume anywhere between 7 to 12 seconds versus a average Ellen player would take a little bit longer. And by those 7 to 12 seconds, I don't mean, oh yeah, I'm just going to drift and then hold the attack, drift and then hold the attack. What I mean by that is that you're able to play the game, you're able to react to the enemies and use your team while still being able to get these stacks. That's what I mean between the difference on like a strong Ellen player than someone who will be more casual that'll just kind of like find a way to do it. But either works, right? Like, I'm not shaming anybody to do anything. I'm just letting you guys know that this drift is very powerful, and that's the primary source of where all of Ellen's, I guess, damage potential comes from, is being able to control how you enter and exit this drift mode. She has a lot of options out of the dash attacks or out of the dash in general, especially when you go from having the flash freezes to not having the flash freezes. She also has a crazy good special move, which is basically going to be the tail swipe, which is super cool. And the tail swipe basically works in a way where you have 1, 2, and 3. So there's a regular tail swipe, there's an EX tail swipe where she now has 2 attacks attached to it, and then there's the EX Shark Nami. The EX Shark Nami is basically after you have enough meter, which you do need a lot of meter to be able to do this. Once she does EX tail swipe, then you press it again and she'll do Shark Nami. Shark Nami is this really cool thing where it's literally the exact way it sounds. She dives underground, she swims around the entire like little bubble around her or whatever, like field, goes forward and backwards. And then she has some pretty cool like AoE effect behind it. It's not AoE where it hits everybody, but I mean crowd control. That's a better way to say it. She has some pretty cool crowd control where this move can now take enemies that might have been on the outskirts of her and pull them closer in. Just kind of like a whirlpool, right? Like a shark version of a whirlpool. She's able to do that. It's very quick, easy. And after you do it, you're actually able to go directly into your 3rd hit of the basic attack, which is where she kicks the trident that she has. It spins around a bunch of times and you can actually hold this to make it spin longer. And there are a lot of characters that have little cheat codes to do this in their kit, where if you do one thing and then you immediately follow up with another thing, it'll cancel or skip a bunch of other stuff that you didn't have to do. So something like I said, with her powerful 3rd hit, you could have another character where they have a 5-hit combo. Well, if you do EX skill and then you just press follow-up attack after, it immediately jumps into the 5th hit or jumps into the 4th hit. There's things like that. Or if you do I think Ambi has it where if you do 1, yeah, Ambi actually does have it. Ambi has a particular thing where if you just do like 1 and then skill or 1, 2 skill, she actually takes a really long time to load it up. It's like she kind of has to like crouch on the ground, position herself, and then launch herself. But if you were to do 1, 2, 3 and then skill, she immediately does it, because the way the animation works, it kind of follows up right behind each other. And because of that, we've also discovered that now, instead of just doing the EX version of the skill, you can actually get both. You can get the hold attack and the EX skill, and they'll all come out on the first frame available. So there's little things like that that just make it really nice to play the character, and it's not one static thing. I think that's what I like about Zenless the most, is that all these characters that I'm talking about, there's not one static way to play them. So there won't be like, this is the best way to play this character, there's nothing else that you should be doing, because the game is very reactive. Now, along with Ellen's weapon, the Deep Sea Visitor, the Shark Head weapon, and her core passive on top of freeze as a whole, the freeze element is very strong. In short, when enemies are frozen and you're attacking a frozen enemy, the crit damage that enemy receives is increased by 25%. Then Ellen has built into her own kit, I believe it's the core passive that she has, at least it was in CBT3. Whenever she activates the flash freeze or she uses a flash freeze charge, any of her basic attacks consuming that charge has an increased crit damage of 50%. She boosts her own crit rate in her own kit, and then she boosted again from the weapon, the Deep Sea Visitor. It boosted by like another 20 or 30% depending on what it is. So Ellen as a character with a fully built out kit meaning that not including the gear, right? With her and then just the weapon and then her kit and what you do with the skills, she can increase her crit rate anywhere between 80 to 100%. You add the gear and it's guaranteed. So Ellen is one of those characters that is, from my Star Rail players, think of like Jing Liu, right? Jing Liu goes into her transcended state and she just gives herself free stats, free 50% crit rate. Ellen is that type of character where when she goes into this flash freeze state, she just gives herself these crit buffs, which is very big. So now this allows you to focus on building her a certain type of way, which like penetration ratio or crit damage drive disc, main drive disc, instead of a crit rate main drive disc, and then a bunch of crit rate substats, right? Little things like that that make this character very strong overall. So like as a first pick, if you're looking at the game and you're like, I want the strongest character available in the game right now so that I can play the game and enjoy it and like learn and blitz through whatever kind of content I want. I want a character that's very long lasting. I don't see this character going anywhere. It's going to be Ellen. But I will talk about that at the very end of the video on like what I think about how meta is going to go. And I won't make a whole different video on that in this video. I'll talk about it later. But I just want to like let you guys know where this is going so that you take what I'm saying with a very strong grain of salt. But overall, I think Ellen is Ellen's my personal pick, by the way, guys. And you stop the video right here if you want. Please don't. But Ellen's my personal pick just because I love the design and I love the character. However, I don't think that makes her the strongest. If you were looking for like what the strongest character is per se out of the two and like who's going to do the most damage, I don't think it's Ellen. I do, however, think that from a casual player perspective, it is 100% Ellen. It is, there's no doubt in my mind that Ellen is the strongest character from a casual level. However, when you start getting into like E0, S0 talks or conversations and you start talking about I guess the fighting game player who has the better execution and what's possible with these characters, now we can talk about Zhu Yuan, and now we can talk about why I think Zhu Yuan is actually the stronger character of the two when it comes to the better player. So for me, Zhu Yuan is one of those characters that has similar aesthetics to Ellen. What I mean by that is she has the movement options that Ellen has to an extent, and they also have forced dodge attacks or forced dodge counters. What I mean by that is whenever you're doing input or motions, whatever, they will auto trigger a dodge or a perfect dodge, right? And so not every character has this in the game, and I know that Zhu Yuan is very good at it. When you're seeing Zhu Yuan gameplay, you will sometimes notice that she might like swing left, right, back, forward, whatever. It's very similar to Grace, where Grace like slides around the screen. Zhu Yuan doesn't slide around the screen. She kind of like hops. Yeah, like what's Judy Bunny or Judy Hopper, the girl from the Bunny movie or whatever, Zootopia. She kind of like hops around the field, yeah? And then she has a lot of slides and, you know, like quick movements and rush down attacks. Zhu Yuan is very boom, 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 boom. Now, again, from a fighting game perspective, if you're familiar with fighting games, Zhu Yuan has a lot of moves that look just like Lucia's from, Lucia was recently in Street Fighter V, but if I'm not mistaken, she's from Final Fight. She's a character that she's also a cop in training or a cop. She has a lot of beat down moves, rush down moves, and a lot of like bam, 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 kick left, kick right, you know, flip around you, grab attacks, whatever. You can't grab enemies in this game, at least not yet. So she doesn't have any grab attacks, but she does have Lucia similarity. With that in mind, Lucia also has kind of like auto dodging in her kit, and Zhu Yuan has auto dodging in her kit. But Zhu Yuan's whole damage perspective revolves around these buckshots, the bullets, the little like when you're looking at gameplay, you'll see the yellow things in the top left corner right beneath her name. Everyone has meter now, or gauges, if you will. All the gauge characters have a gauge that you can represent and see now. So she has bullets. I think she can load up to like 15 or something like that, like a crazy amount of bullets, or 12. It might be 12. But all of her damage comes from that. When she uses regular attacks, they're regular damage. When she uses these buckshots, or like she releases the bullets, consumes the bullets, her damage is increased by a certain percent. And when she does that against stunned enemies, it's increased even further. So a lot of this stuff revolves around that. Not only when she does that, but when she also uses her buckshots, she increases her crit as well. Similar to how Ellen works, where she's able to boost her own crit rate Zhu Yuan is also able to boost her own crit rate. I believe she boosts the crit rate specifically from her core passive, which is basically having someone of the same faction or attribute in the game on her team. The only character that you can use right now that will give you this free crit boost is going to be Nicole. There's no other Ether character in the game. So if you play Zhu Yuan, you need to be familiar with playing Nicole, or at least comfortable having her on the team. Now, going back to the dodge counters, Zhu Yuan basically has a built-in dodge mechanic where if you're able to play the character methodically, you will never get hit. With that said, you not getting hit means that you're constantly refilling your own bullets so that you don't have to depend on the rest of the team to refill your own bullets. Again, very similar to how Ellen works in a high execution player's hands, where I'm a self-made team or a self-made character. I don't need quick assist or quick reacts. I don't need chain attacks or anything like that in order to build up my gauge. I'm just able to do it. The faster you are at being able to build up this gauge on your own without using other characters, the better you are at controlling this character's damage. In the event you have, I don't know, 2 buckshots, you're not really going to get a lot of damage out of that, but you will get a lot of mobility. In the event you're able to take that 2 to a 6, well, now what you're able to do is, now because you have these buckshots, you can weave in normal attacks and enhanced buckshot attacks. You're also able to continue full on strings, because when she has buckshots and she does her 5-hit string, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and she rushes down the enemy, not only will she gain an enhanced shot shell or an enhanced bullet, right? She gains one of the bullets from doing that, and then she gets more bullets from shooting them off. Like, it's really ridiculous how this character works. And so ether damage is very strong because it's very explosive, where freeze, frost, or ice damage, it stops the enemy, right? Freeze is very strong in this game because it just outright stops the enemy. They don't get to move, and you get an increased damage, crit damage received towards that enemy. Whereas ether is just straight up explosive. Imagine, like, it's literally like black holes, right? Ether is one of those elements in the game right now where if one person is getting hit by corruption or ether damage, whoever is next to them, they also get hit. So it's kind of like the AoE. And then you do that on top of the enemy. What's really good about Zhu Yuan is that she has bullets. These bullets feel like a shotgun bullet, right? So like one little buckshot, one bullet is a multitude of bullets. I don't know how it works that way, but it does. So when you see 1 attack, 2 attack, 3 attack, she's not just doing 1, 2, 3, where it's just 1 instance of damage, 2 instances of damage, 3, you know, she's hitting you with a bunch of bullets. And so now you get into, how do I weave this? And because she's very similar to Grace, where Grace can move and dodge and do whatever else she wants without interrupting her own kit, Zhu Yuan still interrupts her own kit, but you can weave in basic attack, skill, basic attack, skill, basic skill, basic dodge, basic dodge, dodge. And because she can pretty much dance around all the enemies on the field, she doesn't have to stop attacking. And so I don't have any clips that I'm available to show you guys right now, but I want you to understand that this character is a high mobility character. She's a high execution character in the right hands. And again, a player that understands the game and understands how to play the character, understands how to play the team. Zhu Yuan's damage output is ridiculously stupid. The amount of damage that she outputs on a single enemy or a group of enemies by just spamming left click and then dancing around them, or even the hold attack, if I'm not mistaken, where she can just straight up like hold it and then bloom, 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 bloom. There's a bunch of crap that comes out of that. When you have max shell shots and then they're stunned as well, that's an increased damage on them. You get increased crit rate, you get increased damage towards that enemy on top of the damage you're already doing from the enhanced buckshot. It's ridiculous. So as a whole, this character is very, in my opinion, future-proof. However, I don't see a lot of players looking at this character to pick up, or even looking at her damage-wise or potential-wise, because of the execution that's required to really make this character work. And some of you might be thinking, like, why do I keep mentioning execution? Or like, why do I think that, you know, this, that, and the third? And like,
oh man, why are you treating this like Hoyo games? Like, you know, we don't want to play games.
That's not what I mean by that. What I'm saying is I've done what, 3 different games now, 4 at this point, different communities, even the Wuthering community, which is very similar to the Genshin community. They just don't want to admit it. All of them are very much, at least right now, the vocal majority right now, I won't say all, the vocal majority of these communities, the Kuro community, well, specifically the Wuthering community, PGR is nowhere like this. The Wuthering community, as well as the Hoyo community, are very much casual first, don't want to sweat. If anything requires me to think more than I can just press 1, 2, 3 with my thumb, I don't want to do it. And that's a vocal majority of the player base, which is why I say like something is high execution, and I let them know that, because the way that I look at characters is completely different than someone who doesn't understand the potential of these characters. A good example of this would be Soldier 11. A good example of this would be Grace, where again, a lot of people slept on Grace. I talked about that in one of my previous videos, and people just don't see the value in Grace because like, oh, she just, does this. But in reality, Grace is an anomaly stacking monster. You don't have to stop playing the game. Zhu Yuan is an anomaly stacking monster, but she has damage. So you're constantly, you trigger corruption with a proper Zhu Yuan build every couple of hits. Like she's getting 2 corruption pop-offs per combo because it's happening that fast. And with the amount of damage output she's doing, on top of the fact that you're pretty much forced to use Nicole to get the maximum amount of buffs. Nicole's black hole is bigger than Zhu Yuan's corruption effect, right? Her bullets. So now you just use Nicole's black hole, suck everybody into one spot, and then you blow them up with a bunch of corruption bullets and they're gone. It's really, really strong. When you get into the proper build of these characters and you start looking at who does what, how do I want to build my Nicole? Do I want my Nicole to be more supportive, or do I want her to be more sub DPS-y and have more damage built into her kit? Do I want her to have maximum energy output or regeneration rate so that I constantly get the orbs because she has a lot of energy? There's so many different things that go into this game right now that I've been having a lot of fun looking at. And that's where I guess now that we've done both, we can actually talk about the little mini section that I wanted to mention previously on why I think it's going towards Honkai Impact Third. I think the meta for Zenless Zone Zero is going to adapt into more of an Impact Third, where they actually lock you out or try to lock you out of the harder difficulty. So right now it's like tower, shoot, Shiyu defense or whatever. Shiyu is the equivalent of MOC or Spiral Abyss, except it can be difficult. And not only is it time for you to get these rankings, so there's not really like the 3-star isn't based on just whether or not you clear in a cycle. I guess like in turn-based games, cycles of the time, right? So like it's still based on time. If you can't clear it in X amount of time, you just don't clear it. And then you have ranks on top of that. So obviously S rank is the best, then A rank, then B rank, and then F, right? You just fail. So there's certain things or requirements that you're going to be able to output. If you just don't have the element that the enemy is weak to, especially like once you get to Shiyu defense like 10, and then the harder version of Shiyu defense, you just don't clear in the same fashion. And Impact Third is very similar to that. Not only is Impact Third similar to that, where they pretty much make it so their in-game mode, the PvP aesthetic, whatever it is, you need a certain element, right? It's weak to fire and ice this week, or it's weak to fire and lightning this week. Next week, it's going to be weak to ice and imaginary, right? I'm just making up elements. I'm just saying anything like that. Or this patch is weak to this, next patch is weak to that. Half this patch is weak to this, the next half of the patch is weak to that. These characters are immediately locked out, like they just don't work. And Impact takes it a step further. Enemies are immune. Now, I already know in Zenless, we do have enemies that are immune. Some enemies are just flat out immune to the damage. Now, I don't think there are any bosses or elites that are immune right now, but some enemies are immune. So it pretty much nullifies half of a character's kit. In the game, every character does physical damage. That's the yellow numbers that you'll see pop up. And then they do their own elemental damage, whatever color it may be, light blue, red for fire, purple, reddish for ether, whatever, right? Enemies can lock that out or just not be, they'll be immune to it. If an enemy's immune to it, and let's say that you've only done you've only built in a Zhu Yuan, and then they get to a point where it's like, okay, ether immune, because we realize that Zhu Yuan's too strong. We want to nullify her this particular patch. So Shiyu defense, ether immune. Well, now you're forced to build someone else because you can't use anyone else. And I understand that this will be some version of power creep to a lot of you guys, but that is where I see the game going. Not only do I see it going that way, but I also know that it's going to be very dependent on weapons. I know that I'm known as like the Lycaon guy in Star Rail. I'm really good at kind of like pointing out when this is a thing and when it's not a thing. Genshin, you don't really need weapons like that because they just give them to you. This game, based off the 2 betas, does not just give you weapons, right? I think we got at most 2 free weapons, and one was Nicole's, and then I think the other was Ben's, or Ambi's. That's what it was. It was Nicole's and Ambi's, right? The 2 characters that you get for free on the team when you start off the game. We got their free weapons. There was nothing else. From CBT 2 to CBT 3, they've removed the free 5-star selector. So before we had 2 character selectors and then a weapon selector. That's not here anymore based off of CBT 3 and from what I can see going forward. If that's not the case and we also don't have a weapon selector, it's going to make it even harder for you guys because you don't just gain weapons without pulling on the weapon banner, right? They've made it separate now. So now it's very similar to Star Rail, where like you can pull on a character banner and you might get a weapon, but ideally you're going to be getting characters. And on the weapon banner, you can pull on the weapon banner and then you're only going to be getting weapons. So it's one of those things where you really have to balance out how you're building your team, who you want to build your team with, and which W engines you're going to value. But that's going to wrap up today's video. Again, I don't know why these are like so long. I'm really trying to not make them long, but I talk a lot. And when I know a lot, when I feel a lot, when I'm passionate, I talk a lot about these things. It is what it is. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts and opinions on whether or not you want to pull for Ellen or Zhu Yuan. Maybe there's a way I can condense this. I'm not entirely too sure. I'll figure it out. Anyway, like the video, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I can't say my usual outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Smell you later.